Alrighty guys, hello and welcome back to the show. So today I'm going to kick off I think another series on the channel focused on viewer comments and viewer questions. So there was a comment that I got the other day that said, and I'm going to paraphrase here, but it said, I never know what to do whenever I get to T2. There just seems to be so many different things to do. How do I prioritize? So I'm going to go ahead and walk through this. I'm also going to walk through this in semi-real time. I'm going to speed things up. We're going to be simulating this on open palms. It's just me on this map. There's not going to be anybody else. Mostly so that another comment that I've gotten in the past is that you guys want to see the subject matter on the screen as I'm talking through it. So this might be a really good way to do that. So let me go ahead and get an initial build set up here, and we'll kind of just simulate that I'm going to take the northern half of the map if there's, an opponent on the other side of the screen. And then we'll talk about what to do whenever you get to T2. So stay with me while I do that. Alrighty, and we're back. We've upgraded our initial factory to a Tech 2 HQ. We've got our initial land production. This is the way that I like to build the map as far as my initial base. So I'm going to be largely free-flowing this. I do have some notes written down, but I'm going to be largely free-flowing this. So as far as what you do once you get to Tech 2, let's just make the assumption that all these factories are producing and that you've got your air factory here. You've got some energy available to you. The first thing that you're going to do is build Tech 2 engineers out of that initial factory. Now, the reason why I go for Tech 2 engineers right off the bat instead of Tech 2 battle units, I usually go for 5 or so. 4. So the reason I go for Tech 2 engineers instead of Tech 2 battle units right off the bat is engineers can be used for a couple of different things. First off, it allows you to build Tech 2 power generators. So one of the biggest advantages of going to Tech 2 is you get more efficient power generation. I usually put almost all of the engineers that I had assisting the initial factory upgrading to Tech 2 to assist the power generation upgrading. Now, why is this important? So, first off, at Tech 2, you're going to run into things that require a lot more energy production. Things like shields, things like Tech 2 radar, as well as things like stealth field generators. So I'm blanking on the name, the deceiver. As well as mobile shields if you're playing UEF, and I think Aeon gets them at Tech 2 as well. Seraphim gets them at Tech 3. So one of the first things that I do always is upgrade my power grid and get a Tech 2 power generator. And I'll pause here and say that this is all extremely subjective. I'm talking about the way that I play this map and how I transition into the Tech 2 phase. It might not be 100% correct, and I'm willing to live with that. So once you get your T2 power, the other reason why you want to build T2 engineers right off the bat is it allows for a lot more flexibility. So let's say you're playing Cybran, like myself in this particular game. I play Cybran a lot. Whenever you're upgrading your commander, you really only have to make a choice between T2 or gun. So if I had gone for gun here, I would have no T2 production on the front line. If I wanted to build, say, some point defense to secure this side, I wouldn't have that ability to do that if I had gone for gun on my commander, which is usually what I would do on the commander. Some people go T2, and that's perfectly viable as well. I really like gun though, because I like to go aggressive with my commander. So building Tech 2 engineers allows you that flexibility, and sending them to the front to build out some Tech 2 structures, which I think is also very important. The other thing is Tech 2 engineers have higher build power than Tech 1 engineers, so it can assist you with upgrading additional mass extractors, it can assist additional factories, etc. It's just good, especially on a map where there's a good amount of reclaim, like open palms and a lot of ladder maps. It's good to get that additional build power so that you can upgrade these things a little bit more quickly. So now that we've got our power set up, what do we do next? So I play a pretty heavy T1 phase, and this is actually probably fewer factories than I would make on this map. I have 8 total here that would be producing military units. I would probably go for 9 or 10. I really like T1 spam. I like spreading out all over the map. So that's the way that I play. And in that particular style of play, I think that you're better off at shutting down Tech 1 Land Factory and upgrading it to Tech 2. Actually, let's run the numbers real quick. So if I select T2 Engineer, so it costs me 580 to build a Tech 2 Land Factory right off the bat, and it costs me 340 to upgrade. Now let's do a little bit more quick math. So Tech 1, so it's an even wash, but I've already invested into these, might as well upgrade them. Alternatively, and this is if you're strapped for mass, okay? So you've got these 8 Tech 1 Land Factories, they're cranking your mass and you don't have a whole lot of overflow, then you would want to shut like one of these down, upgrade it to Tech 2, put some engineers on to assist, and then start up a queue of units. So for Cybran, the queue that I like to do is I like to go for 3 or 4 rhinos. I like to build a hoplite as well as a, not a viper, as well as a deceiver, and then incorporate either bangers or the viper as necessary. So your viper is your long range assault. So if you're playing against a player that likes to turtle up, then incorporate vipers into your mix. And then if you've lost air control, then go for some bangers in your mix, and just continuously kind of upgrade these factories one by one. You can have either these Tech 2 Land Factories on a rally point, so they're going to a specific spot, and then as these Tech 1 factories upgrade, you can have it assist the initial factory. This is a trick that maybe not a lot of people know about, where you can grab a land factory and have it assist another land factory, and it will inherit the unit queue. So what I was doing whenever I first started was I would go, okay, I want 5 mantis there, I want 5 mantis there, 5 mantis there, 5 mantis there. That's 8 actions that I just spent to set up those build queues. Whereas what you can actually do is go, okay, 5 mantis, and then bam, bam, bam. And now all these guys inherit the queue of that initial factory. So as you're moving through, and if you stop this, these will also shut down as well. So as you're upgrading these, you want to make sure that you're upgrading a supporting factory, not your primary factory. So as you can see, they finished their current unit and then it's got sent off. So go one by one, upgrading your support factories, and then have them inherit the build queue from that first factory that you upgraded. So with your HQ, once you're done with your initial engineers, this can be your primary build factory, or you can have it assist another factory if you upgraded one before this guy was done creating engineers, and you get some T2 units into the field, which are always good. That's kind of the way that I approach T2. It's a more gradual transition. So let's flip the coin then, and let's say that you're not a player like me and you're not a heavy T1 spammer, which I definitely am. And how would you actually approach making a transition to a T2 phase? This one I'm gonna have less practice in, but I'll go ahead and walk you guys through it. So let's go ahead and rehost the game and we'll set up a new build. Okay, and we're back. So the other way that you can make the transition to T2, it primarily just depends on how many factories you build and are spamming out T1 units. So we went for a little bit lighter of a T1 spam phase this time. For this map, I wouldn't recommend any less than 6 T1 factories. I just don't think that that'll get you enough units out into the field quick enough to combat your opponent's advances. But so we've got our T2 HQ. At this point, I don't think it's always appropriate to go T2 engineer right off the bat here. And reason why is if you've gone for this build, lower T1 spam, you might be losing positions. So you might have lost this position down here. You might have lost this position up here. Your commander might be running for his life, whatever that might be. So it might be good to crank out 3 or 4 rhinos out of your initial factory first before you go into engineer spam. Now, and by spam, I mean like 5 or 6. While that is going, one thing I will say is that before I make the jump to T2, I try and get at least a couple of T2 mexes. I have 3 here. 3 might be overly ambitious. I try to go for at least 1, ideally 2, whenever I'm making that Tech 2 transition. So after you've built out a couple of rhinos, you've saved your commander, you're still going to go for a T2 power upgrade, just like the way that we talked about earlier in the video. And then at that point, instead of upgrading existing factories, I would actually recommend building new T2 factories. So instead of having, you know, 6 T1 factories and then taking one of them offline to upgrade, I would actually grab one of the engineers that's coming off the line and build another 3 or so Tech 2 factories. This is going to allow you to, instead of inhibiting your unit production by taking a factory offline, it is going to allow you to instead bolster your unit production over time. And like we said earlier, the handful of T2 units that you built initially should be able to kind of stem the tide, or at least keep things from getting any worse, and at least make your opponent think twice. Because if you go for a quick T2 upgrade, which this build is probably a little bit better for, you know, having a little bit fewer T1 factories, it's going to make your opponent think twice about trying to rush you. Either that, or he's going to try and slam as many units down your throat as possible. So I guess it's a little bit more of a gamble. I don't play this way, as far as, you know, going for small amounts of T1 spam and betting on a tech upgrade. I would much rather prefer to get control of the map with Tech 1 before I make the jump to Tech 2. But that's my personal play style, and that's what's awesome about this game, is that a lot of different play styles are in fact viable at multiple levels of play. Jagged talks about this a lot on his streams, where you've got, blanking on, I think it's Zlo. Zlo really likes to go for heavy tech spam, Tech 1 spam, and continues it throughout most of the game. You'll see him continuing to produce Medusa, you're continuing to produce Zuis throughout the entirety of the game. Even after he's made a transition to Tech 2 or even Tech 3, he continues throwing Tech 1 units into the field. So that's his particular playstyle, and your playstyle might differ from his. It might match his. It might be a little bit more like mine, might be more like Jagged's, whatever it is. But this is a good way, I think, to get you started as far as the differences between upgrading. Oh, one thing I forgot. So another thing that I do after I upgrade to Tech 2 is after I've gotten these initial 2 Tech 2 power generators, I always shield them. So drop a if you're Cybern, it's incredibly cheap, but it can save you from like a quick Tech 1 bomber rush, like, you know, 7 or 8 Tech 1 bombers taking this guy out and then causing a chain reaction. It can definitely help with that. And because we've built Tech 2 power, we can now afford things like shields. Yay! Hooray! And then after these 3 factories get up and running, then you can start kind of shutting down your T1 production and starting to upgrade these factories to Tech 2. The other thing that I didn't talk about previously is you always want to be upgrading mass extractors. So I've got 3 right now. And ideally, after you've kind of got a little bit of T2 production under you, you should refocus your efforts to upgrading, especially your core mexes, but any other ones of opportunity to Tech 2. So on this map, your core mexes, as I would define them, are anything that is selected right now. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6 core mexes that are going to be upgraded. These 6 should be prioritized first. Also want to start thinking about ringing these with storages. It's pretty easy. Just grab a clump of engineers, right click on the mass extractor, it'll auto build those mass storages for you. And with that, I'm trying to think if I missed anything. I think that's about it. Like I said, this is going to be a little bit more free flowing. So to summarize it for you guys, if you're going for, you always go for T2 power first, at least in my opinion. Again, this is a highly subjective video. I'm not a professional player, but hopefully this will get you in the ballpark. So always go for T2 power first. And then if you've gone for heavy Tech 1 spam, upgrade existing factories. If you've gone for a little bit lighter of a T1 phase like you see here, build some additional factories and start cranking out some Tech 2. Real quick interjection here from editing Duelist. Actually, as I'm watching this video, there was one thing that I missed. A lot of guides will tie timestamps to these various things, like have your first T2 mex by 5 minutes, upgrade to T2 by 10 minutes, or, you know, whatever that might be. I don't think that timestamps are necessarily what you should be going for. I think that instead, a slower player is going to be making these upgrades slower, and a faster player is going to be making these upgrades faster. So instead of pointing you to a particular timestamp, I think it's better if you follow these kinds of step-by-step guidelines instead of looking for particular timestamps and then getting stressed out if you miss a particular timestamp. Okay, back to the video. Then begin upgrading mexes kind of progressively so that all of your core mexes get to Tech 2. You've ringed all of them, and then you can start expanding out to these guys out here, or this guy, or these 4, or whatever it might be. You just want to make sure that if you're going to invest into a Tech 2 mass extractor, that you've secured the area, relatively speaking. So that's it for today, guys. Let me know down in the comments if you like the format of this video a little bit better. I might start formatting science videos after this, where you guys get to kind of see in a more sped up version how I'm actually setting things up during my testing, if that would be more beneficial instead of just the clips of the tests themselves. So let me know down in the comments below what you guys think. And that's it for me. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.